as the sun sets on another day, and leisurely explores a lush forest with her furry companion. Moments later, she arrives at her home, where her two daughters, Frida and Fanny, revel in a game of football. Upon entering the house, she finds her husband Peter in turmoil over a troubling call from the Stockholm police. After a few tense moments, Anne's plans to tag along are quickly shot down by her husband, reasoning that his ex-wife, Rebecca, will be present, thus making things uncomfortable. With that, Peter departs without another word, leaving Anne to linger in the shadow of her doubt. Several months earlier, Peter and Anne started their day by arguing over her decision to have a co-worker stay over despite her husband's refusal, though she initially defends her choice and soon relents, apologizing for unintentionally hurting his feelings. Later on, Anne, a lawyer, asks her client, a young girl who had been subjected to sexual misconduct, a series of questions to prepare her for the upcoming trial, warning that the court will be against her. During her meeting, Anne reads her daughters a bedtime story before taking them in for the night. Just as she is about to depart, Fanny wonders whether Gustav's arrival signifies the establishment of their family. In response, Anne affirms that they have always been a family, though the dynamics have never been straightforward, especially considering Gustav's choice to reside with his mother. As Anne completes some work, Peter arrives with Gustav in tow. The next morning, Frida and Fanny hand their brother a couple of handmade gifts from school. As Gustav opens the presents, he watches awkwardly as the girls share a tender moment with their father, a connection he has not experienced for a long time. Afterward, Peter offers to help the lads spruce up his room by taking him shopping, a gesture that is met with hesitant gratitude. Later that day, Anne discusses the boy's troubled past with her sister, Lena, revealing he had once again been kicked out of school. Out of options, Rebecca decided to have him spend the summer with his father before shipping him off to a boarding school by the end of the year. Though everyone feels anxious about Gustav's visit, and believes that it will ultimately be beneficial for the whole family. During her manicure, Anne returns to find her home in disarray. As she goes about her cleaning, she accidentally runs into a half-naked Gustav. Luckily, she quickly diffuses the awkwardness by asking him about a book he fancies. Later that evening, Anne finds her client outside her home, the poor girl's face covered with a shroud of self-doubt as she reveals her uncertainty regarding the upcoming trial. In response, Anne raises her, claiming that her sacrifice is not only for herself but for the other girls who experience such mistreatment. Though the odds are stacked against her, at the end of the day, she will ultimately regret her decision to remain silent. The next day, Anne and her girls return home after a day of horse riding. Upon arriving, they find Peter and Gustav in the middle of a heated argument as the young man pushes for the right to move out on his own despite being a minor. As the argument reaches its boiling point, Gustav angrily departs, heading to the woods to soothe his rage. Meanwhile, Peter vents his frustrations to his wife, blaming Rebecca for the boy's violent demeanor, and cries and offends his ex-wife, highlighting the difficulties of raising such a troubled child on her lonesome. Instead of scolding Gustav, she suggests that they give him responsibilities around the house to foster a sense of inclusion. Unfortunately, their conversation is abruptly cut short when Peter, a physician, is asked to come into the hospital. The next day, Anne's client storms out of the courtroom, enraged by the final verdict. Unfortunately, her attempts to calm the girl are for naught as she departs a tearful mess. In the garage, Anne confronts the accused for celebrating his unjust victory. During her case, Anne returns to find her home burglarized and valuables and belongings scattered throughout the household. And if things couldn't get any worse, upon returning to work the next day, Anne is handed a hefty fine for actions against the defendant. Despite the fine, she defends her actions and always fights for what is right. Later that evening, Anne finds an item in Gustav's laundry that was in her bag, stolen during the break-in, thus implicating the boy's involvement in the robbery. When he arrives, she confronts him about the incident, warning that she will report everything to the police if he does not confess to Peter. Though Gustav seems unfazed, she reminds him of the harsh consequences of the system, especially for one with a criminal record. She presents him with an alternative, urging him to abandon his troublesome behavior and actively strive to be a genuine part of their family. After a moment of tense silence, Gustav departs without another word, taking the trinket with him as he leaves. As the days go by, Gustav, having accepted her offer, gradually grows closer to his younger siblings during a barbecue, and looks on in joy, delighted by the blossoming bond among the siblings. The night passes, and one night, Gustav brings his girlfriend Amanda home, introducing her to Anne before they head to his room. Moments later, she notices the pair's sensual moans muffled by a crescendo of loud music. Their rhythmic noises arouse Anne, who later heads into her room to gaze at her naked body. After a long day at work, Anne attempts to seduce Peter, only for him to refuse her advances. However, he ultimately relents, and the pair have a passionate encounter that lasts into the wee hours of the morning. Days later, Gustav takes his sisters out nearby as Anne watches the shore. He later joins them in the water, quickly engaging in a splashing match with Gustav that elicits a chorus of joyful cheers from the girls. Following their dip, Anne and Gustav discuss the boy's social life over a bottle of beer. As they drink, she finds herself drawn to his numerous tattoos, sensing her curiosity. Gustav offers to make her one, but she declines, noting that it would seem unprofessional, especially given her profession. In a state of both intoxication and intrigue, and finally succumbs, granting Gustav permission to etch an intricate pattern on her forearm. As Gustav titties up and fixates on her new tattoo, captivated by its understated yet brilliant viewer. Days later, the couple hosts a fancy party in their home. However, Anne, bored of the meandering conversation, leaves the table to immerse herself in some soulful tunes, her sudden withdrawal leaving Peter troubled. Despite the party being in full swing, she decides to leave her guests and instead accompany Gustav to a nearby bar. Moments later, the two discuss their respective relationships over a round of drinks. Unfortunately, their pleasant conversation is interrupted by Gustav's friend, who invites him to another party. As he departs, and suddenly plants a kiss on his lips, leaving both of them absolutely flustered. Upon arriving home, she is greeted by an irate Peter, who chastises her for leaving without a word or explanation of her whereabouts. He continues his heated tirade, reproaching her for her disrespectful behavior before storming off in anger. The next day, as Peter and the girls play in their yard, Gustav suddenly approaches Anne and gently caresses her arm, hinting at his hidden desire. Later that night, Anne, unable to control her impulses, heads to Gustav's room and seduces him, leading to a passionate encounter between the two. After their entanglement, Anne heads out to purchase a new computer for the boy, indicating her intention for him to stay with them for the long term. Though Peter is initially skeptical of her purchase, he soon appreciates the gesture, welcoming her kindness. Following a night in the town, Peter and Anne engage in a sudden, intense dalliance fueled by her rough passion. The next day, Anne meets Sarah, a young girl whose face is covered in large bruises, with a tinge of despair. She recounts her father's heinous acts, each word carrying the weight of her painful memories. Yet, despite the atrocities, the girl refuses to testify and angrily erupts as she attempts to leave. The following morning, Anne and Gustav have another passionate encounter, their audacity growing with each steamy breath. The two continue their dalliance even as Peter arrives, finishing just as he heads upstairs. As the days go by, Anne and Gustav continue their encounters, forging an intimate yet clandestine relationship. Following another incident, Gustav interviews Anne with a tape recorder, asking her various questions regarding her life. Though she happily answers each of his questions, she finds herself struggling to address one regarding their encounters during the girl's birthday party. As Anne steps away to retrieve some supplies, Gustav suddenly approaches her, and the two share a stolen, passionate kiss. Unfortunately, during their entanglement, Anne is horrified to discover Lena watching from the driveway, the latter leaving in absolute disgust. With her mind rife with turmoil, Anne barely makes it through her daughter's party without breaking down. Throughout the rest of the party, she angrily refuses Gustav's advances, triggering a drunken uproar that ultimately ruins the celebration. Later that evening, Anne and Peter discuss Gustav's future, the former suggesting that they send him off to boarding school as planned. The next day, Anne meets with Gustav in the forest to end the relationship, leaving the boy absolutely heartbroken. Days later, Anne returns from a morning jog and finds Gustav and Peter making plans for a father and son camping trip at the family cabin. She supports the idea, acknowledging that it could be a positive bonding experience for the two. With the men gone, Anne takes the opportunity to discuss her infidelity with Lena. Sadly, Lena is unwilling to go over the matter, angrily ordering her sister to leave her house. After dropping off the girls at their equestrian lessons, a troubled Anne returns home to calm her mind, leaving several loving voicemails to Peter. Unfortunately, that does little to comfort her, as Anne, distracted by a phone call, crashes her car into a ditch. Later that evening, Anne discovers Peter sulking at the table, a glass of alcohol in hand. Despite her reluctance, she joins him for a drink, and in the midst of the evening, he slowly unveils the painful truth: Gustav's heartfelt desire to attend a boarding school and the confession of his intimate relations with Anne, and vehemently denies the accusation, claiming Gustav's claims to be nothing more than lies woven to draw attention to himself. Unfortunately, Peter remains unconvinced, insisting that the boy had disclosed such intimate details that they couldn't possibly be made up. His doubt causes Anne to fly into a frenzied rage, leading her to disclose Gustav's involvement in the burglary, before storming out of the house in anger. As she departs, she absconds Peter for making up his mind before even listening to her side of the story. Days later, Anne returns to their home and proceeds to sort through Gustav's items. While she sifts through, she discovers his tape recorder and promptly destroys the recordings, erasing the evidence of their intimacy. Moments later, the three have a heart-to-heart talk, discussing the difficulties of Peter's past relationship with Rebecca that ultimately led to Gustav crafting such devious lies in an attempt to destroy his new family. Despite Gustav's insistence that his words hold truth, and once again brushes off his claims, convinced that he is distorting the reality of their past interactions. Enraged by her deceit, Gustav spits on Anne's face as she attempts to comfort him before quickly leaving the house, leaving the two to head to bed in silence. The next day, Gustav bids his sisters a teary farewell as he departs for boarding school. Time passes, and life continues without a hitch until, one day, Anne finds Gustav waiting for her at the law firm. During their meeting, he pressures Anne to tell the truth, threatening to report her misdeeds if she refuses. However, she quickly dismisses his threats, confident in the knowledge that she will never be convicted due to his lack of evidence. After the holidays, Anne finds Gustav angrily banging on their door. She quickly confronts him, who screams in frustration for his father, and, incensed by his persistence, denies him entry to his father, declaring that he is no longer part of their family. Her painful words shatter his resolve, reducing him to a weeping mess. During her birthday party, Anne attempts to reconcile with Lena, only for her attempt to be met with cold indifference. As the night winds down, Peter receives a concerning phone call from Rebecca, who reveals Gustav to be missing. Months pass, and the family receives no word of Gustav's whereabouts. However, all that changes when a heartbroken Peter returns from his earlier trip and reveals that a hunter had discovered Gustav's frozen corpse close to their cabin. Authorities believe that the body had been there for over 2 months, coinciding with the time Anne had rejected him from their home. Yet, Peter, unaware of her actions, blames himself for the boy's death, agonizing over his son's horrible fate. Months later, Anne breaks down in the bathroom, tears flowing freely from her face as she mourns her role in Gustav's death. When the sobbing subsides, she sees a ghostly hallucination of Gustav silently glaring at her from behind. Later that evening, Anne tries to comfort her husband, assuring he had no hand in Gustav's death. Unfortunately, Peter quickly silences her, roaring in anger as he storms out of the room, leaving his wife to wallow in her guilt. The next day, the family prepares for Gustav's final arrangements. Amidst the deafening silence, Anne, stoic and somber, stares blankly into the void of her remorse. Wow, I wish Anne was actually reprimanded for everything she did to Gustav. Firstly, I can't believe she seduced Gustav. Considering her line of her, she's the older one and shouldn't have used him. And plainly, I think she was responsible for his death. What are your guys' opinions on this one? Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.